Photographs freeze moments in time. Some show weddings, some war. But a rare few capture something else entirely. Something unseen, something unexplainable, something we were never meant to witness. These are 4 photographs that shocked the world, not for what they show, but for the chilling stories that linger just behind the frame. It began like any other morning in Belen, New Mexico. 19-year-old Tara Calico borrowed her mother's pink bike, hers had a flat, and set off down her usual route along Highway 47. She often rode this stretch, fast and focused, listening to music through her Walkman. She'd told her mother, "Come get me if I'm not back by noon." She never came home. Searchers found only fragments, a cassette tape shattered in the dirt, the cracked casing of her Walkman, and faint bicycle tracks leading off the road. It looked like a struggle. But there were no witnesses, no suspects, no clear sign of what had happened. The trail went cold. Until nearly a year later, something unexpected. In a Florida convenience store parking lot, over 1,200 miles away, a woman discovered a Polaroid photo on the ground, face up. In the photo were 2 people, a young woman and a boy, both lying on what looked like a mattress. Their hands and mouths were bound with duct tape. Behind them, the interior of a van. The window cracked open just enough to show the outside light. The woman took the photo to police. Eventually, it reached Tara's family, and her mother was certain. She said the girl in the photo had the same scar on her leg. She was even reading the same book Tara had left behind, My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. The FBI wasn't convinced. They couldn't confirm or deny that the woman was Tara. They never identified the boy. And just like before, no one stepped forward. No one claimed the photo. No one was ever arrested. Over the years, more Polaroids surfaced. Some real, others obvious hoaxes. Theories ranged from kidnapping to human trafficking to a planned disappearance. But no theory ever led to Tara. And that first photo? It's never been conclusively debunked. The original has long since disappeared. Only copies remain. And questions. Why Florida? Who took the photo? And why would someone go to such lengths, only to leave it lying in a parking lot? More than 3 decades have passed. Tara Calico remains missing, officially. But for many, the image of her, bound and terrified in the back of a van, is unforgettable. It's a photograph that shouldn't exist, and yet it does. In the Scottish Highlands on a late summer afternoon in 1990, 2 men were hiking near the village of Calvine. They had planned for nothing more than a quiet walk in the hills. But what they witnessed would become one of the most controversial and enigmatic sightings in modern UFO history. They claimed they saw a massive, silent object, a metallic diamond hovering motionless in the sky. It didn't wobble. It didn't sway. It simply hung there, as if gravity had forgotten it. And then, behind it, 2 military jets, circling. One of the men had a camera. He snapped 6 photos, clear, broad daylight, up close. When they returned to town, they handed the images to a newspaper. But before the photos could be published, the story was intercepted by the Ministry of Defense. The negatives were taken. The men were never publicly named. The images vanished. For over 30 years, the Calvine photographs were kept under wraps, sealed, classified, unexplained. Investigators trying to track the story found only redacted documents and missing evidence. Then, in 2022, one of the photos resurfaced. Not a copy, but a print, leaked by a former MOD press officer who had saved it from destruction. What it shows is startling. A diamond-shaped object suspended in a bright blue sky, with a fighter jet banking nearby. The scale is enormous, the clarity is undeniable, and the questions are endless. Was it a prototype military craft? A misidentified structure? A deliberate hoax? The British government had already delayed the release of its files on the case until the year 2076, an unusual level of secrecy for a sighting with no official explanation. Some experts argue that it was a test of advanced technology, a project so classified it still can't be acknowledged. Others believe it was something not of this earth at all. But perhaps the most disturbing part isn't what the photo shows. It's what it implies. That governments may be sitting on truths they don't believe we're ready to know, that evidence can be buried for decades, and that sometimes, even when proof is printed on paper, we're still left in the dark. They say ghosts linger where pain was never resolved, where grief became something heavier, something that settles into the walls and waits. Raynham Hall, a grand English estate in Norfolk, is not short of such history. Built in the early 1600s, it has passed through the hands of nobility, survived centuries of scandal, and collected its share of secrets, but none so enduring as the legend of the Brown Lady. Her name was Dorothy Walpole, sister to the first Prime Minister of Britain, a noblewoman of grace and beauty, and depending on which story you believe, betrayal. Dorothy was married to Charles Townshend, a man as powerful as he was possessive. Rumors began of an affair, or perhaps only the suspicion of one. Whatever the truth, her fate was sealed. Some say she was locked away in a hidden room inside Raynham Hall, never to leave. Others claim she died of smallpox. But for over 200 years, visitors to the hall have reported seeing her, a woman in brown satin, gliding silently down the grand staircase. She's never hostile, but she is always there, watching. Then, in 1936, 2 photographers from Country Life magazine were sent to document the house. On the staircase, they saw her. They managed to take a photograph, and what emerged from the negative shocked even the skeptics. A pale figure descending the stairs, mid-movement, transparent but unmistakably human. The photo made headlines around the world. Paranormal researchers hailed it as proof. Skeptics dismissed it as a double exposure, but again, no one could prove it. The photographers never profited from the image. They never changed their story. Over the years, more sightings followed. Guests claimed to feel sudden chills. Dogs would refuse to go near the staircase. Some visitors say they saw her, just for a second, standing still, looking straight at them. But what makes the Brown Lady so haunting isn't just the photo or the sightings. It's what she represents, the idea that suffering can echo across centuries, that a soul denied justice may never find peace, and that sometimes the saddest ghosts are the ones who never meant to become ghosts at all. In the spring of 1861, a man named William H. Mumler developed a photograph of himself and found he wasn't alone in the frame. Behind him stood a pale figure, translucent, ethereal, the shape of a young woman. He was startled. He hadn't seen anyone else in the room. At first, he assumed it was a mistake, a leftover image from a previous plate, but then it happened again and again. And so, quite accidentally, William Mumler became the world's first spirit photographer. Word spread fast. This was the age of mourning. The American Civil War had just begun. Fathers, sons, brothers, vanishing into the blood and dirt of distant battlefields. In cities like Boston and New York, people lined up outside Mumler's studio, clutching fading photographs of the dead. They weren't looking for portraits. They were looking for hope, and Mumler gave it to them, for a price. One widow claimed to see her son's ghost behind her in the image. A mother swore the hand on her shoulder belonged to her daughter, drowned just weeks before. The most famous session? Mary Todd Lincoln. She posed for a photograph dressed in mourning black, and when the image was developed, a tall spectral figure appeared, resting his hands gently on her shoulders. The ghost of Abraham Lincoln. It didn't take long for skeptics to cry foul. Accusations of fraud mounted. Mumler was arrested and charged with swindling the grieving. His trial in 1869 was a spectacle. One of his loudest critics was none other than P.T. Barnum, the showman and master of illusion, who testified that he could recreate the same photos with tricks. But here's the twist. No one could prove how Mumler did it. Despite expert testimony and forensic scrutiny, the court had no technical explanation. The charges were dropped. He manned Dippo, but his reputation never recovered. William H. Mumler died in obscurity in 1884, but his photos remain, eerie relics of a time when science, superstition, and sorrow lived side by side. Were they clever double exposures, trickery, a mix of light, shadow, and desperation? Or did Mumler's lens capture what we weren't meant to see? A glimpse through the veil, and a warning that the dead, perhaps, are closer than we think. Thank you for explaining. If you're fascinated by chilling mysteries, puzzling disappearances, and haunting tales, Midnight Echoes is your destination. Subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, because the darkest truths often emerge just when you think the night is quiet. Until next time, stay curious